Good afternoon, and welcome to Maximizing Missions, coming to you live right here from exciting First Assembly in Waxahachie, Texas. Thank you for allowing me the privilege into your home. I never take that for granted. You know, I believe that missions is the absolute heartbeat of God. And the purpose for this segment, my heart in sharing this segment with you, is to keep the passion of missions alive on our inside. And so in order to do that today, I'm so happy to introduce to you my friend and a long-term missionary, Blair Bonin, with us today. And Blair has been a missionary for a number of years, really, I guess at this point, a career missionary. So I'm excited to have Blair with me today. Thank you, sir, for coming and sharing your heart with us.
Great to be here. Thanks for the opportunity.
It's our privilege. Hey, tell me, Blair, about the country that you serve and some of the things that you are involved in, maybe have been involved in
Sure.
in the future, in the mission that the Lord's called you to.
Sure. Yeah. So my family and I serve in the nation of Belgium. It's a small nation in Western Europe, and we actually live in the southern French-speaking part of that nation. We've been serving there for about 25 years now.
Wow.
We started out in a church planting capacity, and after having planted a church with a team of people, we then felt the draw and the call from the Lord to invest in students, university students. So in the year 2000, we started the university ministry called Students for Christ Belgium. And we've been doing that ever since, working in student ministry since that time.
That's so exciting. So in student ministry, when I think of student ministry for our purpose here in America, I think of Chi Alpha.
Right.
Are you involved in a similar aspect of what we do in Chi Alpha here?
Yeah, so great question. Students for Christ is the equivalent of Chi Alpha in the USA. In fact, we're a sister organization of Chi Alpha. Yeah.
So tell me, what is the best part of being a missionary?
Well, the best part of being a missionary to me is being able to be an ambassador for Jesus in a different culture than my own. We're all called to be ambassadors for Christ, wherever we are as believers. But I just feel especially privileged to be able to do that in a cross-cultural context. And so that's really exciting for me.
That's awesome. So how do you relate that passion into student ministry? What are some of the things that you would do day in and day out with kids on campus?
Right, so we started out many moons ago planting the student work on the Belgian campuses, Belgian university campuses, with another missionary couple. And that looked like meeting with students on a regular basis, whether it be in a large group meeting on or in proximity to the campus. That would be interacting with students in small groups and getting small groups running and going where discipleship really happens in small groups. That would also include training, organizing training events and conferences where we pull students together and train them how to reach their own peers on the college campuses. So those are some of the aspects that are involved in student ministry.
How many kids at any given semester? What's the potential of kids that you could reach?
Well, you know, there's thousands of kids on university campuses, like we say kids, young adults on university campuses across the world. They're kids to us, not especially now. But there's thousands of university students that we have the potential of reaching. Some of our groups can be small groups that range from maybe just 10 to 15 to 20 students. In other nations or other countries, they might be a little larger. We started off doing that in Belgium, and we pioneered or co-pioneered that work for 10 years. And then after a decade, we turned that work over to the nationals that we had trained for student ministry. At that juncture, our leadership with the Assemblies of God World Missions asked us to take on the role of coordinating student ministry across Europe. So while we still live in Belgium, we coordinate a network of student ministries in 17 nations across the continent. So it's kind of grown, our scope has grown, and has really multiplied in a sense, so we really are thankful for that opportunity.
Absolutely. How did you get involved in missions? Today in ministry, there are so many different aspects that we can involve ourselves in ministry, but missions is such an important aspect of what we do. How did you sense the call of God to go into missions versus some other type of ministry?
Sure, that's a great question, and I get asked that a lot. When I was a young kid, I had a really strong desire to learn about geography and cultures of the world, and as a result of that, I kind of just dove into that aspect of my schooling. And I'd always been really, my interest had always been piqued by learning about other people and other cultures. So when I graduated from high school, I went off to college, and then at some point at the university, I felt the Lord really directing me to Bible school to train to have a vocational ministry career in the future. And it was during my first year in Bible college that I really felt a draw to missions. Part of that had been as a result of hearing missionaries come through my local church when I was growing up, hearing stories about different lands, different cultures, and just kind of connecting that to my passion for the larger world. And so that's kind of what was the initiation for me in missions.
What was the first field or first country that you served in?
So when my wife and I, when we first got married, we met when we were in college, and I was majoring in missions, and she was majoring in French. And so when we got married, we sensed the Lord putting us together and calling us to a French-speaking mission field. Well, French-speaking mission fields from where we grew up in Louisiana were far away in Europe or elsewhere in the world. So we started off just doing short-term trips to countries close to us, to Mexico, to Central America, and just getting our feet wet in missions. And then one day we had an opportunity, as some missionaries traveled through our home church, we would meet them and just have a meal with them, talk to them, pick their brains a little bit about where they served. And a couple came through our local church where we were serving, and they were in Belgium. They were in the southern French-speaking area of Belgium, and we had already felt that the Lord was going to bring us back to Europe. We had had an opportunity one summer to do a 6-week missions trip to Paris, France. So after that, we were hooked. We felt like the Lord really solidified the call to Europe, to French-speaking Europe. And when this couple came through our local church, they said, well, we've been praying for a young couple to join us in helping us to plant a church in southern French-speaking Belgium. Would you consider that opportunity? It was an answer to our prayers. We had been praying for God to open the door in His timing, and that was His timing.
Wow. And so from there, how did you end up in Belgium?
So from there, we made application to become missionary associates, a 1 to 2 year program, a shorter term program, to get our feet wet in missions with the Assemblies of God. We were assigned to this couple who was church planting in southern Belgium. And over that process, we matriculated through the system with the Assemblies of God, raised our funds through family, friends, local church, and then headed off to Belgium with 2 children and 1 on the way.
And now have how many?
And now we have 6 children. God has blessed us with a full quiver, and most of them are out of the nest now. We still have our youngest at home. He's 13, and he'll have 1 more term with us on the field.
Wow. And when do you anticipate going back to the field?
So our plan is to be back in Europe sometime this summer, in the late summer. Of course, with all of this coronavirus going on right now, we're on a little bit of a standby, so we're waiting on the green light from the AGWM Missions organization to tell us when would be a good time to go back. We have a little bit of fundraising left to do before we meet our final budget, But that's kind of where we are, looking toward the end of this summer or the beginning of the fall.
Man, that's so exciting. I was blessed a couple of years ago to spend a couple of days in Belgium with Blair and Dina, and I'll never forget. I was so surprised. Loved the culture, but their home at the time, it was built in the 16th.
Oh yeah,
remember that?
It was about 150 years old.
Yeah. So for you contractors or architects and all you designers out there, this home, the plaster, the woodwork, the beams, the exposed beams, it was just one of the most phenomenal things. They had one restroom though,
right.
that I remember, and I remember thinking, man, all these kids, and they have one restroom, so there's some challenges in and of itself, I'm sure.
It was a rural life. We really enjoyed living in a village right close to the university at that time, and you know, we were there for 4 years, and really enjoyed it. I'm a country boy, so I had some chickens in the backyard too.
Hey, dream for me, Blair. What are some things that you feel like God has put in your heart, purposed in your heart? And so dream and share with me some of the goals that you feel like God has for you in this next season.
Right. So, you know, we've been on the field for 25 years now, and we've been able to plant and develop a network of student ministry in Belgium, and now we help coordinate a greater network across Europe. My dream is to see God call more workers to come and serve in Europe in student ministry from all over the world, principally from the United States, because that's my connection, but also to raise up nationals to do the work of the ministry and reach their own cultures and their own people. We would love to see Students for Christ Europe represented in every nation across Europe. Currently we have presence in 17 nations, but there's at least that many nations on the continent that we don't have presence in. So I'd love to see planting going on in all the nations of Europe, and in big nations like Germany and France and Spain and some of the larger nations where we might sometimes just have one group in one city, on one campus, in a giant nation. I'd love to see God call more people alongside us to serve in that capacity. So that's my big dream.
Yeah. That's exciting for sure. Hey, what advice would you give someone that senses the call of God to become a foreign missionary? What advice would you offer them?
That's a great question. I would encourage anybody who's considering even a short-term approach to foreign missions to connect with missionaries as much as possible. Pick their brains, listen to their stories, hear their heartbeat, see what makes them tick and how God has brought them to the place that they are. I would encourage people to read about the cultures of the world, pray for the cultures of the world. A great resource is Operation World, that each day of the year presents a different nation and how we can pray for the people and the needs in that nation. And then finally, I would encourage everyone to at least take one short-term missions trip somewhere. It doesn't have to be very far, it doesn't have to be very long, but just getting out of our own culture and encountering other cultures and other languages, other people groups, it just has a way of opening our vistas and our perspectives on life and people of the world.
Talk to me about some of the things that you feel like you need moving forward to really fulfill what God's put in your heart for this next season.
Yeah, well, what we really need, as I've mentioned already, is workers. You know, it'd be great to have people who are willing to give a year, pray about a lifetime. That's kind of how we phrase it in our Chi Alpha circles here in the States and in our SFC, Students for Christ circles in Europe. Come, give a year, pray about a lifetime. We need workers. We need all hands on deck. That's one of my big ministry needs. Also, we put on a conference every year where we train students to go and reach their campuses, and we often have a need for people to work in various aspects of the conference, like in children's ministry, while moms and dads who are missionaries or national families who are working in student ministry are learning and having a conference for training themselves. Sometimes they have children, and those children are in a VBS program during that week. So come alongside, serve with us for a week in children's ministry, for example. Those are some examples.
What are some of your favorite things that you get to do in your work?
One highlight of doing student ministry has been, for me anyway, has been seeing students, of course, come to Christ and develop a relationship with the Lord, but also seeing them as they encounter each other in the larger aspect of the ministry, whether it be in their local group or cross-culturally in another country when we do training conferences, is seeing them find their life mate. And then being able to walk with them through that process and do a wedding for two people who have met in a Students for Christ group, for example. That's a highlight for me.
Come on, one example, because I love mission stories, and I know you got lots of them.
Yeah,
so one example of that.
Wow, okay, so there's this one student who was in Belgium, and he had come to Belgium from Africa. Actually, he had his family was killed in the genocide in Rwanda. And so he came as a refugee, and he was in high school at the time. He wasn't even yet a college student, but he had a certain maturity about him. He had seen a lot of things in his life already at his young age. And he plugged into our student group that we planted in Belgium on the campus there, and just became really close. He and I became really close together, and as he matriculated through college, he was in this one group, and then there was a girl from Belgium in another group in another city. Well, we would do national retreats every year, and we'd bring all the groups together and do a retreat somewhere in Belgium. Well, they met somehow, some way. I didn't even organize it, but God did it, and they met and fell in love and decided they'd love to commit their lives to one another. And so I was able to walk with them through that process and marry them. And it was just a special experience for both families. And today, they are plugged into the local ministry in their home church. In fact, today they lead the Department of Families and Couples in their local church. So he's always coming back to me and asking me questions. What about this? What was it? Could you speak for this? Could you come and visit us for that? And it's great to see that they founded a family and now have 3 kids of their own. So that's just a win-win for everybody all around, and I had fun doing it.
There you go. That's exciting. Man, I really appreciate you being here today.
It's great to be here.
For those of you that aren't aware, our First Assembly here in Waxahachie, we actually support Blair and Dean and their family on the field. And so thank you for your financial help in helping them to stay on the field and doing what God's put in their heart. Again, I was blessed to see firsthand what they're doing, and so I so appreciate your help in helping us to keep them on the field, as I know they do. And so thank you for a few moments of your time this afternoon. I really, again, appreciate coming into your home. This week we have a lot of things going to be on Facebook, and check our website, text messages, and there'll be some different opportunity for you to connect with your church right here on Facebook, online, and several things coming up this week. And so happy that you were able to join me today for Maximizing Missions. And we'll do this again. And thank you. Have a wonderful afternoon. And we'll see you again real soon. God bless.
Merci beaucoup.